So many questions here. We will ask these questions on the War Room. You're not going to get this anywhere else, folks, again. And it should be rather shocking, I think, to have an entire fleet of these vehicles in Maryland. Let's go back to Alistair. So have you talked to anyone about this? Has anyone provided you any feedback? Has anyone responded to your story? Any officials, anybody?
How's it going, Owen? Yeah, sorry about that communication failure we had right there. But I have not had any individual come back at me with the story. This has basically been an exclusive story to only InfoWars, and I was keeping it like that. And it's very interesting that the mainstream media would never cover this. They will never allow you to understand that under the same roof of a Kellogg facility, this is a Kellogg warehouse, there are a bunch of UN vehicles in the back part of the parking lot.
Welcome back to the War Room, folks. Final hour here. We are live 3 to 6 weekdays. You can find us at infowars.com/show. You can find us on the War Room channel YouTube page. Subscribe to that and follow us on Twitter at War Room Show. It's been an exciting show. We plan to keep it fast-paced and hitting all the developing stories as we go with you from 3 to 6. We're now joined by Alistair Williamson from Stockboard Asset. You may be familiar with him. I've interviewed him many a times. And now he's got a story that's not being covered anywhere, as far as I can tell. UN armored vehicles are being stored under same roof of a Kellogg cereal warehouse. Well, there's all kinds of different angles that I want to get into this with you, Alistair, but let's just start with the generals. How did you happen to find this warehouse with all of these UN vehicles?
Thanks for having me on here. This was an anonymous tip that I want to just keep it at that. But what I was told was to go to this location, and at this location, you will find in the back part basically a whole unit of UN vehicles, from support vehicles to gas trucks, water trucks, to freight, or I would say more than likely we would call them shipping containers. We even saw armored vehicles. Now, I had someone challenge me and say, look, Alistair, these armored vehicles that you're peacekeeping vehicles. And I told them, I said, those are bulletproof cars. You can slap paint on them, you can slap a sticker on UN, but at the end of the day, those vehicles are in war zones in the Middle East, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is very troubling that we have this unit of vehicles by the UN that's basically stationed at the private corporation that's 70 to 80 miles from Washington, D.C., as well as 70 to 80 miles to Baltimore. And it's very troubling that we see this.
Wow, is that drone footage, too, that you captured there?
That is drone footage that I was able to bring up a drone. The airspace was clear. I met all FAA regulations at that specific point. But it gives you a very interesting view that not many people have seen of UN vehicles.
You know what, guys? Let's try to get Alistair reconnected because his audio keeps breaking up. Hey, Alistair, we're just going to try to get you reconnected. We're having an audio issue with you. Again, though, you saw the footage, folks. I saw one. It was on one of those trucks that had a loading gate, and I saw one of those UN vehicles. It looks like the tank version. It's not really a tank. It's more of an MRAP, I suppose. And I saw one of those being transported through Missouri. I don't remember when I saw this, but I remember I took a picture of it. I even made a meme out of it. I'm going to see if I can find this on my Twitter, and we'll put it out before the end of the show. But I was shocked by just seeing one of them. Just seeing one of them. I was like, what is that? How did that get here? Why is the UN have occupying vehicles in the United States? I didn't vote for that. What the heck is going on? But then, as you just heard, Alistair Williamson from StockboardAsset.com gets a tip, an anonymous tip, excuse me, saying, hey, go to this location. You're going to be shocked what you find. And then you saw his drone footage. I would say it looks like there's about a fleet of 100 vehicles within that unit. And again, as he was pointing out, these are occupational units. Okay, yeah, there you've got some trucks that you can use for transportation, but that's not all they had, folks. They had, it looks like they had a semi in there. They had what appears to be MRAPs. These are seriously heavily armored vehicles, and you can only ask, why would the UN have these vehicles in the state of Maryland, which, as he pointed out, 70 miles from D.C., 70 miles from Baltimore. We know that the globalists are trying to initiate or spark some sort of a civil war, whether it be over race, whether it be over Trump, whatever it is, anything to try to divide this country and take it down. And then is that the plan, to bring in the UN, to have the UN as an occupying force? I don't know. These are serious questions, and I'm not seeing this on any other media. Are you seeing a fleet of UN vehicles? Look at that. Is that a petrol? That's for moving petrol or gasoline or some sort of chemicals. Why does the UN have that? So again, I'm just trying to figure out why. But do we have Alistair back with us, guys? Trying to get him reconnected. But he also made quite another interesting discovery here as far as why they might be being housed at a Kellogg cereal warehouse. That's another question you might just wonder, why is that going on? So many questions here. We will ask these questions on the War Room. You're not going to get this anywhere else, folks, again. And it should be rather shocking, I think, to have an entire fleet of these vehicles in Maryland. Let's go back to Alistair. So have you talked to anyone about this? Has anyone provided you any feedback? Has anyone responded to your story? Any officials, anybody?
How's it going, Owen? Yeah, sorry about that communication failure we had right there. But I have not had any individual come back at me with the story. This has basically been an exclusive story to only InfoWars, and I was keeping it like that. And it's very interesting that the mainstream media would never cover this. They will never allow you to understand that under the same roof of a Kellogg facility, this is a Kellogg warehouse, there are a bunch of UN vehicles in the back part of the parking lot. Now, what we have to understand is that this building is separated, and about a third of the warehouse space is used by Kellogg, and it's a cereal manufacturer, and they're storing various types of cereals. I think what this location was holding was Special K. It's your cereal that you get at like a department or a grocery store. Now, the 2/3 of the building, it's rented by the U.S. General Services Administration, and for quite some time, under the same roof, there have been armored vehicles and other types of UN vehicles, and you can see in the video what type of vehicles those would be. Armored vehicles. There's a fleet of trucks. We see even water trucks, gas trucks. I mean, basically, you see a whole supporting unit that is giving support to the armored vehicles and whatever task that happens to be. Now, I made the point before communication failed, is that this location is tucked back in a corporate business district that the everyday individual would never know it would exist. It's also 70 to 80 miles from Washington. It's a straight shot to Washington, D.C., or a straight shot to Baltimore. So if there was panic, like we saw in Baltimore during the riots, or social chaos, if there was any type of Antifa uprising or anything in D.C. like we saw when Trump was elected, it's very odd that we see this unit sitting there. So it's very interesting that the proximity to these two locations, it's very interesting why it's just sitting there. It's waiting, Owen. That is what it's waiting.
It appears, when you look at these images, I mean, it looks like it's in a deployment ready. I mean, it looks like these things are ready to deploy. I mean, they've been stationed there. They're not in any parking garages. They're not covered up. And another question that comes to my head, I think would come to anyone's head in this matter, could there be more of these? You discovered one. who's to say there's not more of these? If there's one there, why couldn't there be more of these? Perhaps there are. Maybe we need some more anonymous tips telling people, hey, go film this. We've got UN fleets in other areas too. Maybe this will be the spark that unites that. I wouldn't be shocked if there were more of these.
Now, what's very interesting, and I want to jump into the article where we're talking about Kellogg's. And when you think about Kellogg's, you think about the keyboard elf. You think about Rice Krispie treats, the elves. They're very harmless creatures there. You think about Cheez-Its and Pringles, all these.
All right, we're going to stop him right there. We're going to give you a teaser. On the other side, we're going to connect Kellogg's to all of this and find out why there might actually be a legitimate connection between the UN housing their fleet right next to a Kellogg's warehouse, and maybe there is a connection there, folks. But regardless, this should be a leading story. Welcome back to the War Room. We are joined by Alex Jones. He will be sitting in with us now. I think Mike Cernovich will be joining us here in a minute, too. It the Clown perhaps might make a surprise appearance.
Well, yeah, let's be clear. We're going to be on towards the end. He's making a documentary, and we're sitting there watching this amazing interview with Alistair in between a break, and they're asking me right in this part of the film they're making called Hoaxed, how do we verify news stories? And I said, here's an example. You see that on television right there with this Alistair individual on. I said, that looks like a video game, super 3D modeling. It's so crisp. But I said, he looks familiar. Let me go back and ask him. So on camera, I march back and I say, how do you know that's real? They said, Alistair's given us great drone footage off and on for years. Oh, and you said he helped when you were getting physically attacked by deplorables. They're the real deplorables by the Antifa at the Deplorable there in D.C. at the inauguration that he helped you. And then we did further vetting, and I said, okay, well, he's given us great stuff in the past. It looks like it's real. But I went on further to say it's not a UN takeover. You weren't saying that either. They're getting manufactured here in the United States. Then they get shipped overseas. But the media, every time we cover something like this, misrepresents what we're saying, like Jade Helms saying the UN's coming to kill you this summer. No, when they have drills with this type of stuff, I've talked to the military personnel, they admit it's for overseas, but also here jointly. But now under Trump, less and less is this going to be used against the American people. More and more it is for overseas operation. But when people saw the trains a few years ago loaded with brand new armored vehicles and tanks with the UN insignia, people thought it was an invasion, when in truth it was the forces being taken to the ports to be shipped overseas. So they'll take something like this, and I'm glad you're reporting it. You're giving accurate reporting. They'll misrepresent what we're saying and what we're doing, claiming we're putting out fake news. But then that overshadows the Democratic Party saying they want the UN to come in, they want to have a civil emergency, they want to declare the election overturned, they want the arrest of Trump, they want the overturning of the election, they want Homeland Security to federalize it. Phil Mudd, deputy director of the CIA previously, says he wants to kill Trump. Trump's going to be killed. All that's real. So we're smart to be watching this, and Alistair's incredible to go out and get this footage and share it with us. He's totally on target. I'm not in here saying, look, Owen, you're not doing a good job, let's vet this. I'm using this as a microcosm of education for myself, you, the listeners, and the viewers of how we're presenting this reasonably, saying this looks pretty ominous, but what's really behind it? But then I want to give folks the vetting from all angles. This is real footage, incredible footage, what drones and HD can do with that nighttime lighting. This is real. This isn't some video game. But again, what are they really being used for? So you guys finish up there with Alistair. I'll be back in about 15 minutes, and I think we're going to have a surprise visitor that is fiction, that is satire, but they're going to say that that is a real thing we're doing as well. This is a lot more real than It the Clown coming to visit us.
And exactly, you just talked about it too, where we're saying, hey, this is going on. We're asking the questions. We're showing the footage. We just want coverage of it. You won't get that coverage anywhere else. We're the only news organization that actually covers it.
And that goes out to all these great vetted sources like Alistair. Because we're sitting there going, man, that looks so good it looks fake. But that's technology now. It's like these TVs, you go and see the new TVs. I haven't bought one. They're so clear you can't believe it's real. But then it was a great example for them to go, yeah, that's Alistair. You know him. He shot all this great drone footage. He's done this. He's helped us out. I go, yeah, I recognize him. And then I turn to the cameras and I go, see, that's the vetting that happened before this guy was put on. Owen's known him. We've known him for a while. And that is real footage of real UN vehicles being made in America, clearly for export We hope, but it doesn't mean that the Democrats aren't trying to get a civil emergency race war in America where the UN troops would come in. Henry Kissinger has talked about using that as a scenario. We're not saying it's happening. We're not saying it's imminent like MSM and CNN have misrepresented. We're saying this is the type of stuff that's going on and taking place. All right, back to Owen Schroyer and back to Alistair and the great work. We need to get Alistair as a reporter with his drone out there. He's doing a great job.
I know he'd love to be. He's broken a lot of stories out of Baltimore. He's located in Baltimore. There's a lot of stuff going on out there.
Please continue.
So the interesting connection that we were about to get into was the fact that this thing is located right next to a Kellogg's warehouse. Kellogg's is a company that does major philanthropic work. You were addressing this in your story, Alistair. Go ahead.
Owen, thanks for having me back on here. And I just want to say to Alex's point, no one is saying here that these vehicles are being used for domestic issues or whatnot.
No, I know, Alistair. They're going to say that we said that. This isn't even about you. You're doing a great job. We're just illustrating how media deceives.
And you're 100% right. Media does deceive. They like to tell the world that something you said, but in reality you didn't say, and they like to allude to it. But the very interesting point here that I want to bring up that I have in this article, it's the fact that it's sitting under the same roof of a Kellogg's cereal warehouse. And you can look on Google Image or any type of address webpage and see that it is a Kellogg's cereal warehouse. Now, what we have to understand is that this warehouse is divided into a third and a two-thirds. The one-third is Kellogg's, and the two-thirds is the general, I have it right here, it's the U.S. General Service Administration. What's very interesting, the point that we're bringing across is that Kellogg's looks like an innocent company. It does. And I was saying that the elves with Mr. Keebler, the Rice Krispie treat elves, it all looks fine. But when you start diving underneath of what Kellogg stands for, their nonprofit arm, according to Breitbart, which is the 7th largest foundation in the United States, and one of the largest donors to George Soros, and a very large donor to Black Lives Matter, we have to start asking questions. And this is the Kellogg Foundation, guys, that is donating to organizations that are trying to disrupt the American cities through community organizing groups. Let's kind of ask the question, why, under the same roof, why do we see UN military vehicles in a Kellogg's factory? Is there something else that is happening? We don't know. We can't tell because we're not inside the location. But all we can say is that the Kellogg Foundation, the nonprofit arm of Kellogg, the cereal company, has a track record, a terrible track record for promoting left-wing political issues through George Soros, who is actively trying to destabilize the United States. We saw that in Charlottesville. I've seen it here in Baltimore. We've seen it in Ferguson. We've seen the money that is flowing into these organizations, and it's very concerning that a Kellogg's warehouse under the same roof and the U.S. General, and it's right here, the U.S. General Service Administration housing UN vehicles. It's very odd. That's what we're saying. It's very odd that in one location you have the Kellogg and then you have the U.S. General Service Administration.
And as you point out in the story, W.K. Kellogg Foundation has given major donations to George Soros's Open Society Institution. W.K. Kellogg Foundation has also donated 6 figures, almost 7, to Black Lives Matter. So again, we're just reporting on this, trying to ask the questions that the mainstream media will not address. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for that great footage, Alistair.
Well, thank you.
So there goes Alistair Williamson. He was the one that captured that drone footage, shot the report from outside the, well, it's just a staging area for a UN fleet right now. Where it goes, nobody knows because they're not going to tell you. We're going to be right back on their side. We'll hear from Alex Jones, Mike Cernovich, and Leanne McAdoo.
We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make, we fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.